the success of the Oblivion remake is gonna change the games industry. And I wish I was joking, but I'm being completely serious here. After Blizzard did Diablo 2 Resurrected, and especially Warcraft 3 Reforged, every major company was now looking at remakes, remasters, call them whatever you want, and thinking like, yeah, let's not do that. This is not that easy money that we were told it is. Blizzard completely effed themselves hardcore. And then the Oblivion remaster happens, and it's amazing. It breaks records. The flaming Atrion woman, even more flamier and even more curvy. Amazing. It's absolutely godsend. But in reality, I think this is mostly the fact that I personally cannot believe that Bethesda did something right. It truly seems like a dream, but if it's a dream, then I have already gone to sleep and woken times up, and I'm still in this dream. So see it if that's true. But it's hard for people to imagine to believe that Bethesda actually did something correctly, because Bethesda is. I mean, even if they do this correctly, I think the overall opinion of Bethesda is that they're still absolute garbage.
Oblivion Remastered was shadow drop, much like many of us who had been talking about it for many months now had anticipated, and everybody could immediately jump in and start playing this pretty good remaster by Virtuos and Bethesda of the 2006 classic. And finally, so many...
Okay, so first of all, that talks about the shadow drop, it's all cope. This is all cope. People are trying to pat themselves on the back and saying, yeah, we knew it. The reality is, there's just a couple of people who said that this is going to happen. And I am personally 100% convinced that this was Microsoft slash Xbox doing marketing. This was intended. The drops, the information that we got from insider leaks, and by the way, that person, Nate the Hate, that pretty much originates all of this, I'm pretty sure that's just an Xbox slash Microsoft sock puppet for marketing purposes like that. There's no way that's a real person, okay? The information that he gives is way, 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 way too specific without going into detail about anything, which is just humanly impossible. If you're getting inside information and leaks, you are saying more than just, oh yeah, it's gonna drop like on this day, today, and tomorrow. No. So again, this is 100% an intentional campaign that also worked out, which is, again, hard to believe, and that's why people are not thinking like this, because again, Bethesda's involved. And I mean, say what you will, Bethesda is still like a completely inept company. And the Oblivion remake kind of proves it. It kind of proves that modern day Bethesda. I talked about this previously, so I'm not going to go into too detail about it. But if you haven't seen, here's the too long didn't read. Old Bethesda is proven to be good. The old Bethesda games are not just flukes. They're not just, oh, you're happy about them because you were a kid when you played them. No. They were actually good games with good writing, good dialogues. No one's complaining about any of these things. And now, modern day Bethesda is just trash and everyone hates them. And the reasons that are given are valid. This proves that Bethesda is absolutely incapable of anything good.
Different questions that we had around this have been answered, and the answer to those questions is a little bit strange. This is, after all, a pretty complicated situation that I will say I think they've handled pretty well. But when you have a classic like Oblivion that so many people love, when you have a game that means so much to so many people, and you're trying to somehow bring that into modern times, I feel like it's inevitable that there's going to be people who don't like the decisions made, but that doesn't really seem to be the case for Oblivion Remastered. Seems like people are overall enjoying it, and I think they've made some very, very smart decisions overall. And while obviously this is not a full review because I haven't beaten the game, because that would be crazy, I do want to give my opinion on a lot of the decisions that they've made, on the good and the bad that is here, because overall I think that this is an incredibly interesting way to kind of remaster a game. It's not a remake.
When everything else fails, cure minor wounds doesn't.
It's not a remaster, it's this strange thing that's kind of in the middle. So hi, I'm Mug, and if you're new here, welcome, and if you're not new here, welcome back. You're looking fantastic, by the way. And we're gonna talk about all things Oblivion. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, this video is sponsored by boot.dev, the oldest partner.
No one cares.
So basically, after so much speculation on what they would be doing to change Oblivion, the answer is that it's more than a graphics overhaul, because there are things that have changed for the better in the game to try and make it just a little bit more.
Yes. This was one of the things I was talking about, because the old leveling system and so many of those systems would not really be that great, but, well, they just put in Skyrim's versions of these, and Skyrim's versions of leveling are actually pretty okay. You know, not the greatest, not the most in-depth, but definitely good and enjoyable.
More accessible to people that maybe.
And that's not even the critique, by the way, because not everything needs to be the best to be enjoyable, be good, okay? Sometimes just good, or barely even passable, is completely fine.
Never experienced Oblivion in all of its crusty 2006 glory, but it feels like they very, very deliberately have kept a lot, if not all of the jank that really characterized Oblivion for what it is. A lot of the unintentional but absolutely fantastic comedy that is within Oblivion, and I guess that now that they consciously left all of that in, it's no longer unintentional comedy. So for example, a really interesting change. A lot of different races within the game have received new voiceover lines. So it doesn't feel like there's only 4 voice actors that are voice acting the entirety of the game. But they didn't record over the existing chaos and iconic lines, or the actual behavior of the NPCs and how they approach you, or how time freezes with that very classic Bethesda zoom into the face and awkwardly have somebody else just kind of standing there.
Dude, okay. See, this was never a problem. The reason why people were talking about it being a problem in, for example, Starfield, was because, well, again, most women don't look like women. They have listen, the most feminine face in Starfield is a round woman face, okay? Everything else is typically a fucking jaw chiseled out of fucking marble at this point.
Definitely, that's.
And this game, the remaster, made women look like women, okay? And the facial expressions are not dead like this and shit, okay? This is not how the NPCs look at you. So, it's fine. The zoom in, zoom out was never the problem. It was the fact that the faces fucking looked putrid, ugly, disgusting, and there were no reasonable facial animations, and, you know, everything looked like a non-gendered existence. This is not the case. That's why there's no problem. This is why people are not complaining about the zoom in.
Still definitely there and still incredibly funny with I think the new faces make it even funnier, to be honest. And that seems to be the overall approach to the entire game. The leveling system has been modified slightly, not too much. Basically, they've put a little bit of Skyrim into Oblivion, but they haven't done away
They modified it a lot.
completely with the leveling system, which is one of the bigger complaints that people have around Oblivion. But they didn't just completely rework it and get rid of it. They didn't add in new combat mechanics. It's not like you can run around dual wielding spells or something. It's still the same combat mechanics that are in Oblivion. You can't dual wield or anything like that. But what they did was polish up a lot of that. They polished up the feel on a lot of archery stuff. They made it so that melee combat just has better animations that kind of flow better and attack better, and all of these really cool animations and hit sounds. And
effectively, he's just saying everything that I said that people are not gonna like about the real old Oblivion from way back when you were a child and autistic, and now you're an adult and still somehow autistic. Huh, strange. All of that has been changed. All of the things that I said, I did not think people will appreciate about the actual old Oblivion in the modern day. All of that got changed. All of it. Literally all of it. It's like Bethesda watched my video and said, holy shit, this guy's cooking.
the way that enemies react to them really does make the combat not modern. It's not modern at all. Where at the end of the day, if you have enough healing items, you just kind of stand in front of somebody and you attack them and you heal and you attack them and you just don't have to move, honestly. I think if you've played a Bethesda game before, you know what I'm talking about. That is still the case. You're not going to be dashing around avoiding attacks. You're not going to be doing crazy cool combos or anything, but you can hold down the mouse, get a really cool animation of punching an imp, and that just immediately made me
That is all you need.
happier. Or for example, a really big thing is that I think the third-person camera looks really damn good in this game. They said in the presentation that it was meant to be close to something like Starfield. I prefer the overall feel of Oblivion to Starfield when it comes to character control. They're very similar, but not identical. And you can tell how deliberate that sort of stuff was to strike a careful balance between what Oblivion was and what it is in its remastered form. There is something about the movement of Bethesda games, especially those older Bethesda games, that I always describe as of kind of feeling like your player character isn't really like in the world. It's more like you were T-posing and gliding on land. And that feeling is still kind of there, but there's just a little bit of head bob and reactivity to the overall terrain that adds this little extra bit of weight, just a little less floaty than it used to be, meaning that it kind of feels like a modern game imitating how those games used to feel, while taking into consideration that people don't want to lose that feeling overall. So a lot of these changes, for as small as they might seem on the surface, do eventually add up to a moment-to-moment gameplay experience that does feel just a little bit more modern and does make the overall experience more palatable for people who are more modernly inclined, let's say, and maybe aren't so tolerant of some of the stuff that older games have,
Don't worry
while
about
still preserving pretty much what Oblivion is, with its constant comedy and intense jank still intact. But of course, the biggest change of it all, and what I'm going to use to transition to some of my things that I don't like about this, is the massive visual overhaul of everything here. Now, I personally think that it looks fantastic. I absolutely love how the
Is there anyone who is going to say the visuals don't look that good? Now, granted, do you like the lighting or do you want it a bit more green? Because you need to understand it. Well, I'm going to tell you a joke, but well, it's not a joke, but it is a joke. You know, wink, wink. The people who made this were in China, and they don't know what blush green looks like because they live in smog. So there you kind of go. That's why everything looks not green.
new Oblivion looks. And while you can still tell that, you know, they have to work with the bones that are there, this isn't the most cutting-edge graphically game ever made. I think that this world looks really well, and they've done a great job of respecting the feel and the aesthetic of Oblivion while bringing it into a completely new realm of fidelity. Now, that's going to be a controversial opinion. Some people will probably say that they don't like how the game looks anymore, not even talking about the color grading, just the way that models look, or that armors look, or the environment looks. One of the bigger sticking points, though, is that color grading. People have been complaining that the game does not look this colorful and vibrant way that Oblivion did originally, which, of course, if you're on PC, there are already mods. There's already reshades out there to kind of bring that back. And I have said it many times, but my enjoyment of Starfield went up considerably just by installing like a neutral LUTs mod, the lookup tables, to make the game just not look.
Your enjoyment of Starfield goes up tremendously if you decide to not play the game and delete it. That's when it truly peaks.
the stock way, I guess. And it made it look more neutral, quote unquote, and I just...
Also, look at how no one's telling you, oh, you need to go into New Game Plus 523 and be 375 hours into to start enjoying the game. Now, there's no New Game Plus here, obviously, but you see, there's no cope. There's no bullshit. None of it exists here about Oblivion, unlike Starfield, but... unironically, people said, oh no, the game gets good when you're in New Game Plus 3 and 50 hours in. That's when the game starts. Just fucking stupid. But yeah.
loved the way that it looked that way. And hey, modding is at the heart of a lot of Bethesda games. At least if you're on PC, you can definitely tweak that. And I do think that those criticisms are pretty fair, and I do think I prefer the game looking more like the original when it comes to the color. And of course, it's a problem for people on consoles, but if you're on PC, it's a pretty...
There's literally no one on console. Okay? No one has bought... Fuck. If you want, we can go and look at the Xbox list. You know what? I'm gonna do it, okay? Xbox live player games. Let's see. Let's check real quick where Oblivion Remaster is. By the way, some people started commenting, "Oh no, this doesn't represent anything. This just represents." Shut the fuck up, losers. And let's see. Yeah, it's still not even on the list. Again, all the Bethesda fanboys are gonna always only play on PC because that's where the mods are.
Easy fix. And none of that means that the game itself base looks bad. It looks different in a way that maybe some people will.
Okay, listen. Living in the Oblivion world, maybe not the greatest because, you know, you're probably gonna drive and trying to fucking fuck a flame Atreon, and that's something we all will at some point try to do because reasons. But man, you can just go in there and kill a mud crab? Holy! It's a crab! I want that, and they're common! I mean, shit! Someone needs to make a video that if every crab was as dangerous as a mud crab in the Oblivion world, the whole world would have been overrun by them without exception everywhere. Because, yeah, that's actually that would be a fun video.
Won't like, but I really do enjoy how the game looks. I enjoy a lot of how the game feels. I love how some of those charged attacks feel. It's added a whole new level of happiness, of just clotheslining rats. It's just glorious. And through it all, at the end of the day, what is here is Oblivion, which is still a fantastic game from top to bottom. Just an...
Bro, modern day kids don't even understand what clotheslining means, okay? I'm gonna explain what clotheslining is. When we were kids and we were playing tag, when, you know, you were like fucking 7 or shit, well, you used to do that in yards and places like that, and sometimes there would be clotheslines because there would be clothes left out to dry. And then someone runs through it, and someone else runs after them, and they don't fucking see the clothesline because you're a kid and you're stupid. And then... concussion that you did not tell anyone about and hope that it goes away. Because reasons... Hospitals are boring as kids. What do you want? Yes, that happened. That happened a lot, and that's where clotheslining comes from. Because, man, that was the great filter of children 20 years ago. Okay, that was life. It is what it is.
Absolute classic of an RPG that really kind of kicked off an entire era. The quests are all there. The DLC is included and remastered as well, which I can't wait to get to Shivering Isles because I love Shivering Isles a lot. I might get into why I like it so much when I get there. But everything that fundamentally makes Oblivion is very much respected here. And that does come with some downsides. There are things here that I wish were different and aren't. Leading up to the release of Oblivion Remastered, I have been very public in saying that I really don't see the point in the graphical overhaul just for the sake of...
There is a point in the graphical overhaul. The graphics do feel dated, but you're not gonna care if you've played the old games for a while, probably, okay? I have come back to multiple, not Oblivion games, back where the graphics do look like they originally looked back then in the 2000s. And you get used to them in literally like 5 fucking minutes. The first time something fun happens, you're like, oh, graphics don't matter. Yes, graphics do not matter. Anyone who says different should probably be Minecrafted. Okay, it is what it is.
graphics. And I think that's why calling this remastered is fitting, because it's not a remake. And if it were a full remake and it just were this, I would be incredibly disappointed by that. This is a graphical remaster with some extra quality of life touches all throughout, but nothing that fundamentally changes the game. And that does mean that this is still a pretty old game. That Bethesda face zoom in time freeze of talking to people, it's really only acceptable here because Oblivion is from 2006 and you're aware that.
Nah, this would work in any game as long as the game was good. There's no problem with this. The reason why you didn't like this in Starfield, well, I already said the reason, because it was done fucking poorly. That's it. Simple. Simple shit, okay? We accept so many things that are illogical, dumb, flat out wrong, look bad, as long as the whole package is just good enough, okay? There's a reason why World of Warcraft Classic is so much more fun to a lot of people than retail, even though retail just objectively looks technically better. And there are so many other situations where you can apply the same logic to so many different things. It's not even close, okay? As long as minor details don't matter when the packaging is good. And one of my favorite examples of this, because we never get into this discussion, is Tower of God. Tower of God is manhwa, aka manga, pretty much. It's a light novel, and that place is just, from minute one, there's only a fucking cave. From minute two, there's literally fishes flying through the air. Left is right, up is up, and bottom is 3 times vertical times 7. Plants are growing from the blue sky, and lampposts can teleport you. And you know what? Every single person who has read Tower of God is like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't even need an explanation for this. All of this is random hoo-ha garbage and just fucking shock value, but it fits in perfectly to the combined thing. Alone, it sounds stupid, but together, it creates something that is beloved.
That you're playing a game that, at its core, is still the same game from 2006. If Oblivion were to release in a remake state today, I would expect more dynamic camera angles and actual framing of scenes and something of that sort. Think something like Baldur's Gate 3. Some of the clunkiness of the combat, for as much as there's stuff that's been refined to make it feel better, is still at its core pretty clunky combat system. A lot of the dungeons, the ruins that you can enter, a lot of the stuff regarding level design and where the different cells, where the different regions transition, so where there's actual loading screens, is still a game from 2006. Some of these dungeons are incredibly samey looking, not very visually distinct in many different ways, and end up being very simple designs of just hallways that you go down and then loop around in a way that we've seen done a million times since the release of Oblivion. That hasn't been changed in a way, for example, as Skyblivion is saying, where they are redoing all of them and actually making them more visually distinct, have more of their own identity and puzzles and designs in them. Skyblivion, by the way, is totally still coming out and completely fine. I've seen so many people say that Bethesda doesn't want...
Yeah, no, Bethesda doesn't want Skyblivion to be a threat.
Skyblivion to exist. They sent the entire Skyblivion team codes to play Oblivion Remastered, as far as...
And that proves that they're okay with it? Nah.
As we know, there is absolutely no bad blood in Bethesda's...
Oh, you know there's bad blood, okay? Listen, you're a company that everyone shits on because you haven't done anything noteworthy in 20 goddamn years. And then there's this other group of people who actually are looks to be like are making something good. I think there's a lot of bad blood there. I think that's a given. I think anyone who's gonna say there's no bad blood is either insane or coping hard.
More than happy.
I think Todd Howard hates Fallout New Vegas because it's the best Fallout game and he didn't make it, so he wants to destroy it. And everything that he does seems to corroborate that.
To support the modding community, or at least that's the last thing we know. And I think that's great because it also preserves the identity of Skyblivion and what they want to do with their more actual kind of a remake of Oblivion versus what Oblivion Remastered is, which still has those warts, and those warts are now very pretty. They look a lot prettier than they were before. There's no doubt about that. But just because you put on a new coat of paint doesn't mean that it's not the same old house, and that the base.
Okay, see, this is roughly combat that almost feels like Tainted Grail. If you want to play Oblivion Remastered, I would actually say play Tainted Grail. If you want a Bethesda game that's not done by Bethesda, and it's hard, okay? In Tainted Grail, there's no just constantly running away from your enemy. He's gonna throw daggers at you, cast a spell or something like that, and you're fucked. In Tainted Grail, like a one-on-one battle like this looks almost like this. Only difference is the animations and effects are better. And you're dying with 3 hits, buddy, okay? Fighting someone one-on-one, you can make it unfair and to your advantage. Fighting 2-on-1, get fucked. It is what it is. Good luck fighting your first pack of red caps, and then seeing them surround you and throw rocks at you, and you just dying like some kind of medieval peasant woman.
Basement is a dungeon that has 3 left turns. Now, is that a deal breaker? No, not at all. Is it a price worth paying for retaining a lot of the charm that is Oblivion? In my opinion, yes. In my opinion, I think it's a decidedly good bet in this case, because I wouldn't trade what Oblivion was for really anything, and I think that it's something worth experiencing for people who have never played the original. The problem is, I've said that the original is still there. Nobody has taken it away, but I do completely understand that some people wouldn't want to go back to that. So even if my personal preferences or my dream.
Does Oblivion have skooma? Can we skooma it up? That's what I'm waiting for, okay? And if Oblivion doesn't have skooma, then bro, this is why Morrowind is just the superior version, okay?
Dream version of this project were different. I think there is actual value.
Hey, as a child, you had one of 2 options. Either you played Oblivion and were a peasant, or you played the Master Race Morrowind and awed at the wonder of pixelated dark elf women, okay? It is what it is.
Of having this version of the remaster exist so that people can have that new coat of paint and have those quality of life improvements, but still get all of the jank and the weirdness and the quirkiness and the brokenness sometimes that Oblivion is, and that a lot of Bethesda's output from the time has, that crusty.
Okay, well, that's pretty good. So again, Oblivion Remaster, shocking success. Who would have expected? Monk Thief, 10 out of 10. Bye.